In this video, we're tearing into one of the slickest county lines ops that UK gangland has ever seen. Anthony and Brian Siner weren't just Liverpool heavies. They were masterminds running the Scouse Dave line, flooding Gosport and Plymouth with 34 kilos of crack and heroin from hundreds of miles away. Anthony called the shots from Merseyside, while Brian, locked up and known as Big Show, ruled from a prison cell. They ran a business-like machine, couriers, managers, and runners, moving drugs and cash like clockwork. But when a car stuffed with 3 kilos got stopped near Plymouth, the walls started closing in. It's January 2022. A foggy night cloaks Gosport's quiet streets, a world away from Liverpool's neon sprawl. A battered Ford Transit van creeps along, engine low, headlights off. Inside, 2 men with thick Scouse accents sit tense, one clutching a duffel bag stuffed with cling-wrapped bricks of crack and heroin. The driver checks his burner phone. A message from a local runner flashes up. Corner of Bury Road, now. They pull up to a rundown flat, its windows dark. A hooded figure slips out, exchanges a quick nod, and grabs the bag. Kilos of Class A drugs. The van peels away, back toward the M3, another drop done. This is the Scouse Dave line in motion, a Merseyside empire stretching south, masterminded by brothers Anthony and Brian Siner. In the UK underworld, few names carried weight like the Siner brothers. Anthony, 38, and Brian, 41, weren't just street hustlers. They ran the Scouse Dave line, a drug trafficking network that turned Gosport and Plymouth into their personal gold mines. From January 1st, 2022 to March 28th, 2023, their operation pumped crack cocaine and heroin into southern towns far from their Liverpool base. This wasn't a new hustle. The Scouse Dave brand had been embedded in Gosport for years, a shadowy county line that the local addicts knew well. The Siners didn't stumble into this game. Years back, they'd cut their teeth in Merseyside's brutal drug trade, building a network that thrived on loyalty and fear. But when Liverpool's streets got too hot, cops sniffing too close, they shifted their sights. Gosport, near Portsmouth, and Plymouth, down in Devon, were ripe for the taking. Small towns, big demand, less heat. By 2022, their runners were a fixture on Gosport's streets, a Scouse presence that locals couldn't miss. Men with northern accents, fast cars, and bags of product, keeping the line alive. Anthony and Brian didn't just move drugs, they built an empire. The Scouse Dave line wasn't some corner deal. It was a machine, stretching hundreds of miles, with every drop planned to the minute. Couriers hauled kilos south, runners slung gear, and cash flowed back to Liverpool. The brothers had turned county lines into a science, and for a while, it looked like they'd cracked the code. But in the shadows of their empire, every move was being watched, every call logged. The Siners thought they were untouchable, but they were wrong. Their network pumped 25 kilos of crack cocaine and heroin into Gosport, a coastal town ripe for profit. Another 9.6 kilos saturated Plymouth, transforming Devon's streets into a drug bazaar. Their setup was well organized, with managers, couriers, and runners operating like a well-oiled cartel. The Siners' roots ran deep in Merseyside's drug networks, forged in battles for turf and power. When Liverpool's law enforcement tightened the noose, they didn't fold. They pushed into new towns and cities. Anthony ran Gosport's deals with an iron hand, every transaction razor-sharp. Brian, behind bars, kept Plymouth's pipeline alive. The OCG raked in millions. But even the tightest machines have flaws, and the Siners were about to find theirs. This wasn't a street crew slinging loose, it was businesslike, with a payroll. They ran like a legit trade, deals logged, cash stacked. Couriers hauled product to Gosport and Plymouth. Others grabbed sale proceeds, running bundles of cash back to Liverpool's stashes. They worked shifts, clocked out, and went home, keeping it steady like a day job. Gareth Roberts was the roadman, hauling drugs or cash on long runs. Adam Hughes and Gary Cranny called shots, keeping every play in check. Lee Lewis Richardson held a key role, deep in the action. Max Pike, Clayton Donnelly, Donna Ewan, Paul Norton, Brett Toe Quainton, Kevin Weltholm, Christopher Crew, and Sean Harland were involved in drug supply, part of the Southern Grind. Danny Venning dealt on Plymouth streets, a core player. Squads were sent to Gosport to nail every drop, no mistakes allowed. This was a sharp setup, built on cash and control, with every player in place. November 15th, 2020, just outside Plymouth. Gareth Roberts grips the wheel of a nondescript hatchback. In the trunk, 3 kilos of heroin and crack cocaine sit hidden under a spare tire, destined for Devon's streets. Suddenly, blue lights flash in his rear view. A routine stop spirals as officers swarm, tearing through the car. They pop the trunk, rip open the stash, and cuff Roberts on the spot. The haul's worth a fortune, and it's the first domino to fall in the Signer Empire's collapse. Gareth Roberts wasn't just a driver, he was a lifeline, shuttling product and cash for the Signer operation. That night in Plymouth, his run went south, and the bust ripped a hole in their network. The cops seized 3 kilos of heroin and crack, part of a larger haul that included 4 kilos of drugs, over £30,000 in cash, and weapons, blank-firing handguns, knives, even knuckle dusters. The operation had been humming along, its runners a noticeable Scouse crew in southern towns, but this stop changed everything. Roberts' slip wasn't random. Law enforcement had been sniffing around, zeroing in on suppliers to climb the chain. They'd clocked the northern accents, the fast cars, and the deals in Gosport and Plymouth. That November night, they hit the jackpot, bagging a load that tied straight back to the Signer machine. The 3-kilo seizure wasn't just a loss, it was a signal. The empire was exposed, its gears grinding to a halt. For the Signers, the clock was ticking, and the police were closing in. The Signer operation thrived on secrecy. Every deal, every drop was coordinated through burners, messages vanishing like smoke. But in the summer of 2020, those digital walls crumbled. A single call between Anthony and Brian Signer laid bare Brian's grip on Plymouth's deals. That link wasn't just a thread, it was a rope. The operation's pulse slowed after a wave of arrests sparked by Gareth Roberts' bust. The line went quiet, deals stalling as runners scattered. Seizing the gap, law enforcement fired off a mass text to the line's customers, a blunt warning that the network was compromised. The Signer's machine, once a juggernaut, was stuttering. Behind the scenes, investigators had sifted through millions of call logs, thousands of texts, each one a breadcrumb leading to the top. Danny Venning, a key Plymouth dealer, was one of the names pinned in those digital trails, his role exposed. The brothers had banked on their tech to shield them, believing every message was untouchable. But every tap, every call, was a betrayal waiting to happen. The digital slip wasn't just a mistake, it was the crack that would bring the whole operation crashing down, and the Signers didn't see it coming. The Scouse Dave line was crashing fast. After Gareth Roberts got nicked and the phone leaks, the Signer operation was a wounded beast, staggering under its own weight. By early 2020, the Empire's seams were splitting, runners got sloppy, deals missed their mark. Talk of trouble snaked through the ranks, from Plymouth's docks to Gosport's back alleys. The brothers doubled down, pushing their crew to tighten grips on southern turf, but cracks kept widening. Behind the scenes, the operation's pulse was fading. Local dealers, like those tied to Danny Venning in Plymouth, felt the heat. The phones were no longer safe. Every call was a gamble, every message a potential noose. The network's UK-wide sprawl, once its crown, now made it a sprawling target, too big to hide. Runners scrambled to cover tracks, but the game was shifting. Raids were brewing and warrants were stacking up. The brothers' orders grew frantic. Their control was slipping. Anthony, holed up in Southsea, barked commands to keep the cash flowing. Brian, still caged, pushed Plymouth's deals through gritted teeth. But the machine was choking. Too many threads, too many leaks. The Scouse Dave line, a name that once ruled southern streets, was now a ghost, its players marked, its days numbered. The net was tightening, and the signers were about to feel the squeeze. July 2020, Southsea, Hampshire. Anthony Siner's world collapsed in as a blur of boots and shouts took him by surprise. Armed cops stormed his hideout and slammed him into cuffs as bodycam footage captured his stone-cold glare. Brian Siner, already caged, faced fresh charges, his power crumbling from a cell. The brothers, architects of a sprawling drug network, remained silent in their interviews. But their silence couldn't save them. Their own phones had already spoken. The net had closed on the gang's UK-wide web, dragging 17 conspirators into court. By January 2021, 15 gang members faced sentences totaling over 85 years. At Portsmouth Crown Court, Anthony Siner copped to 4 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs, earning 17 years and 7 months. Brian, pinned for 2 counts, pulled 15 years and 9 months. Gareth Roberts, their trusted courier, took 6 years and 9 months for 4 counts. Lee Illingworth, a lesser player who'd sat 13 months awaiting trial, dodged any serious time, with a 2-year suspended sentence and 30 days rehab. Judge Sawyer didn't hold back. This was a well-organized and professional machine. The Siner's digital fingerprints, calls, texts, and deals were laid bare. Their words were read aloud. The brothers thought their firm was untouchable. But now, everything had come crashing down, and more gang members were about to follow the bosses. The Siner brothers didn't fall alone. The raids dragged their entire crew into the abyss. With Anthony and Brian locked away, the bosses were gone, and the remaining players faced the courtroom. At Portsmouth Crown Court, the machine's cogs, managers, runners, and dealers, stood trial, their roles carved out in cold evidence. Most of the 17 conspirators were down, but 2, Danny Venning and Sean Harland, still awaited their reckoning. In March 2021, 7 of them got hit hard. Adam Hughes, a top-tier manager, pulled 8.5 years for 2 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. Gary Cranny, another linchpin, took 7 years for 4 counts. Lee Richardson, deep in the deals, copped 9 years for 2 counts. Max Pike and Clayton Donnelly, street hustlers, drew 5 years, 7 months, and 4.5 years, each for 2 counts. Demi Hannon, a lighter player, dodged bars with a 2-year community order, 25 days rehab, and 150 hours of unpaid work. Donna Ewan scraped by with a 22-month suspended sentence, plus 20 days rehab and 60 hours of unpaid work, both for 2 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. April brought more sentences. Paul Norton got 6 years, Brett Toe Quainton 5, and Kevin Weltham got a 2-year suspended term with a 4-month curfew, all for 2 counts. In May, Christopher Crew, a low-rung dealer, got a 12-month community order with a 6-month drug rehab stint and a further 20 days rehab. Each sentence was a nail in the coffin. The crew thought they'd ride the Siner wave forever, but they were wrong. The Scouse Dave line is dead, its pulse snuffed out in courtrooms and cells. Anthony and Brian Siner, once untouchable, ended up in the concrete maze. The gang's enterprise, a sprawling web of deals and drops, was gutted by Hampshire's serious organised crime unit, backed by Merseyside and Devon and Cornwall police, with the Crown Prosecution Service hammering the final nails. Raids tore through hideouts, vehicle searches stripped away the operation's lifelines, each striker cut deeper into the Siner machine. Merseyside's Project Medusa, hunting down county lines, played its part, weaving a net across regions. Every text, every call, every deal that the Siners thought was buried was dragged into the light, their own tech, turning traitor. The operation's scale, once its strength, became its downfall, with every runner and deal a thread leading back to the top. In gangland, there's no honor among thieves, only bets that fail. The Siners gambled on secrecy and distance. They lost. Their story isn't a blaze of glory. It's a cold lesson etched in steel bars. Build a route, run your line, but one slip, one call, and the game buries you. The Scouse Dave line is gone, but the streets never sleep, and another crew is always waiting to take over. For more raw and real crime stories, hit the like button and subscribe. Until the next episode, stay alert and stay safe.